everybody. Welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel, Truth First Christianity. We've got a problem. And as you know, we're in the search for truth, meaning we turn over every rock, doesn't matter what we find. Well, as you know, we're studying the church history by Eusebius right now, Eusebius of Nicomedia. I'm in book 3. I'm in a chapter called The First Successors to the Apostles. This is important. These are the apostolic fathers, the first leaders of the church that are either mentioned in Scripture or were students of the apostles. First, let me read you what I came across that sent up a major red flag. Paul testifies that Crescens was sent to Gaul, France, but Linus, whom he mentions in the second epistle to Timothy as his companion at Rome, was Peter's successor in the episcopate of the church there. Episcopate, bishop. Linus is, according to historical records, the second bishop of Rome. Later they would come to be called popes. Right now they're just bishops. So he is Peter's successor in the episcopate of the church there, as has already been shown. Clement also, who was appointed third bishop of the church at Rome, was, as Paul testifies, his co-laborer and fellow soldier. Well, we have a problem there, because a book I often referred to called the Liber Pontificalis does not tell us that Clement is the third bishop of Rome. It tells us that Cletus is the third bishop of Rome. And let me read you something very briefly from the preface of this book. The bishopric of Rome, favored by circumstance in many ways over the bishopric of other cities, is fortunate also in this, that it possesses records dating almost from the age of its venerable foundation. The equally ancient sees of Jerusalem, Antioch, and Alexandria have no memorials earlier than the catalogues of bishops which were set down by the historian Eusebius in the 4th century. That's what we're studying right now. And remember, 4th century is the 300s, right? Constantinople can trace its episcopal line. Constantinople was Byzantium, one of the 5 major Christian centers. When Constantine becomes king, it becomes Constantinople. On the other hand, Rome, for a variety of reasons, which are still matters of controversy, was regarded as a peculiarly faithful custodian of apostolic tradition. And I want to fast forward here to this point. Throughout the Middle Ages and until comparatively modern times, the Liber Pontificalis was accepted not only as the oldest, but as also the most authentic existing history of the papacy. Extracts from it were incorporated into church liturgies. It was quoted as an authority by countless historians. That's not to say there's not errors in it. We've shown some in videos. We know that there are, and we know simple mistakes get made. But this is a big deal. Eusebius is telling us Clement is the third bishop of Rome. Liber Pontificalis is telling us Cletus is the third bishop of Rome. Who do we believe? Where do we find truth? So I went to some other sources, and I want to tell you something about both these people. But first, I went to a book that I used before I obtained my 14 volumes of the pre- and post-Nicene Fathers called A Dictionary of Early Christian Beliefs. Well, it has a whole section in here on Clement of Rome, who had writings. He wrote an epistle that actually is extant. You can read it. It exists. Nothing on Cletus. That's interesting. That's telling. That could be part of the problem we're looking at. Now, what do we know about Cletus? According to Liber Pontificalis, first, he was by nationality a Roman from the precinct Vicus Patriarchus, son of Aemilianus, occupied the see, meaning he was bishop of Rome, 7 years, 1 month, and 20 days. He was bishop in the time of Vespasian and Titus of Domitian, the 7th consulship of Vespasian, etc., etc. Now, for Clement, it says Clement by nationality was a Roman too, from the district of Celian Hill, son of Faustinus, occupied the see for 9 years, 2 months, 10. He was a bishop in the time of Galba. Each one goes on to list the accomplishments, how many people were appointed priests under them, what cathedrals and churches did they build, what did they bring into the church property-wise during that time. Now, listen to this. Pope St. Cletus, Anacletus, the second successor of Peter. This is where, what do you mean Anacletus? You said Cletus. Well, if you look at the first 5 popes, including the New American Standard version of the Bible that the Catholics use, it says Peter, Linus, Cletus, Clement, Anacletus. Well, a lot of historians think that Cletus and Anacletus are the same person. Well, the only problem is one is Greek and one is Roman. Where do we go with this? Let's see what they have to say. The second successor of St. Peter. It is true that the Liberian Catalog, that was a 4th century list of the popes. It came after Pontificalis. So called because it ends with Pope Liberius, who died in 366. It contains both names, Cletus and Anacletus, as if they were different persons. But this is an error owing evidently to the existence of 2 forms of the same name, one an abbreviation for the other. Okay, I can buy this. It's the same person, Cletus, Anacletus. But how does that help us with the ordering of the bishops? Peter, Linus, both agreed upon. We have scriptural support for those. Clement, mentioned in the scripture. Cletus, not mentioned in the scripture. I often wonder if that is why we did it the way we did it. Put Clement in there. Okay, well, fine. It doesn't matter anyway. All the popes before the 300s, we're not exactly sure about the timelines of when they served, and that's true enough. Pontificalis tells us that. The editors that have picked it up over the centuries have said, hey, these things are very hard to date. Calendars change, times change. We do see later Linus, Anacletus, Clement. And this succession is certainly the right one. It is that found in St. Irenaeus and in the chronicles of the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Both Africa and the Orient adhered faithfully to this list, which is also given in the very ancient Roman canon of the Mass, except that in the latter, Cletus is the form used, and the same occurs in St. Epiphanes, St. Jerome, Rufinus, and many 5th and 6th century lists. The second successor of St. Peter governed the Roman Church from 76 to about 88. The Liber Pontificalis says that his father was Aemilianus and that Cletus was Roman by birth and belonged to the quarter known as Vicus Patrici. It also tells us that he ordained 25 priests and was buried in the Vatican. There's no historical evidence for there is historical evidence for only the last of these statements, the Feast of St. Cletus. So, what are we basically being told here? We have a discrepancy in church history, and we got to point these out just like we need to point out the good things we find. So, according to newadvent.org, which is new history we rely on today, the Liber Pontificalis gets credit for being right. Peter, Linus, Cletus, Clement, Anacletus. That's not to say Cletus and Anacletus might not have been the same person, but remember, one was a Roman, one was a Greek. It's interesting that he comes up with Clement as the third and not Cletus. Let me say that again. Eusebius is writing in the mid-300s. This is prior to the Liberian Catalog, which came in the 4th century, the second list of the popes. He would have had the writings of Irenaeus. Yet he somehow comes up with Clement as the 3rd bishop of Rome, when everything prior to that said Cletus. Interesting. Now, is it a simple mistake? Maybe. Could be. Was it done on purpose? Could be. Maybe. Maybe Eusebius said, okay, well, Clement is named in the Bible. Clement has an epistle. We've got nothing on Cletus. People liked Clement better. Who knows? Maybe it has nothing to do with any of them. Maybe it was a mistake made by a later editor of Eusebius's work. Remember, he didn't sit down and write this in English. He would have written it in probably Latin, right? Or whatever was spoken in Constantinople, whatever Roman language, Latin, I suppose. Anyway, fascinating, right? As you can see, we're still dealing with objective sources. There's still mysteries that appear, but it's this kind of fascinating digging that helps us get to the truth of the faith. And something like this doesn't discredit anything about Christianity. It's just another interesting treasure to find, another interesting rabbit hole to go down. Friends, if you want to buy a book that I've purchased, you can visit amazon.com/author/nicholasdgarrett. You can get one of the books from the Just Tell Me the Truth About Christianity, which one includes the early church councils. You can get my new nonfiction, Shipwrecked in the Land of King Tobacco, the first Washington family immigrant to America, about George's great-grandfather John and the Washington family establishment here in the North American colonies. You can also visit us on Teespring. Pick up a t-shirt, a cool cup. Anything you can do to help support our work would be greatly appreciated. God bless you, and as always, may your work today bear fruit. Thanks.